Hey YouTube, Natjazz860, smoking the Friday Savinelli with some velvet. Wanted to do a quick clip before today's video. Couple of announcements. Smoking the velvet in honor of Artful Codger, who re-uploaded his History of Velvet video, which I consider a classic. Check that out, Artful Codger. Also have a birthday shout for Stephen Harris from the United Kingdom. Told Stephen I'd wish him a happy birthday. I think it was on Monday the 16th. Happy birthday, mate. And finally, Zombie Nation has had a little, had a family crisis. Reached out to me early this week wanting to do a raffle to try and raise some money to help out his nephew's family. Told him I'd be very happy to do whatever I could to help him out. And in the meantime, Ghost Cobb managed to assemble all the details of Zombie Nation's raffle, put up a terrific video, which I'm going to link to down in the bucket. Check out that video, check out Zombie Nation, see what you can do to help them out. A lot of people have come forward already, and see what we can do for Zombie Nation. And now, on to today's video. So, witches have been around forever, and when the Europeans came to the New World, they were under an awful lot of pressure to get things rolling, get established. And at that time, the church was almost like the law, and it kind of kept people on an even keel from getting into a lot of trouble. The real hot button of the church was the devil. Any deviant behavior said to be the result of the devil. And what ended up happening in the case of the witch trials was people were under so much pressure and trying to keep the spotlight off of themselves that they'd often accuse their neighbors or others around them of being in cahoots with the devil. If you were in cahoots with the devil, that was a punishable offense, of course, and a lot of people got hung. Little fun fact, the first witch trials in the New World were actually in Connecticut around 1640, which is 50 years before the Salem witch trials. And if you read some of the accounts, you can see what was going on. Somebody's chickens weren't laying enough eggs or something. They'd accuse the neighbor of putting a spell on them because she was a witch. There might be somebody that was good healing people with herbs, which was a common thing back then. And if they were real good, they might be accused of witchcraft. They'd end up on the end of a rope. But especially at the end of the Salem witch trials, the church leaders and the leaders of the local area all pretty much admitted that the whole thing was just a terrible tragedy, and they came up just short of apologizing. So, going into the 17 and 1800s, the whole devil issue and the witch trials were behind, and I think people that wanted to be witches came out of the woodwork, because it was now they weren't tried for being witches, but they were kind of tolerated in society. And just a few miles from here, in the next town over, there was a whole nest of witches. They used to get up, have a little meeting every morning. There's a road in town called Witches Rock Road. It's probably got 5 or 6 stories associated with it, but I'll tell you the one that's my favorite. These witches were hanging around doing their witchy stuff. And there was this one particular farmer in town that used to pass by every day, taking his goods into market. It was the only way to get into the center of town. He'd often heckle these women. And one particular morning, or one particular day, he was coming back from town, and he started getting into it with these women. And whatever was the topic of conversation is lost to history, but one of the witches got pretty upset with him. Started spinning her arms around, sparks coming out of her hands, the whole 9 yards. He says, "What are you doing, you old bag?" She says, "I just put a spell on you and your ox team. Every time you try to pass this rock, the yoke on your ox team is gonna just fall right off, and you're not gonna be able to take your stuff into town." He thought that was pretty funny. So, next day comes along, he loads up his cart with all this stuff, taking it into market, comes up upon Witch's Rock. Sure enough, the yoke fell right off the ox team. One went this way, one went that way. Spent the whole day trying to get his ox back. And so it went on, day after day. The story goes that he finally had to move because he could never get past Witch's Rock. Witches are a great subject. All kinds of stuff written about them. There are a few other famous ones in Connecticut if you do a search for them. Anyway, that's my little tale. Hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks an awful lot for joining me.